I know personally somebody who got divorced and remarried somebody else, and then their spouse passed and never had changed their beneficiaries. So now that person is getting a retirement for life from an ex spouse.
Welcome to Moment the Other Way, a podcast about your journey and finances. I'm your host, James. We have Peggy with us today. We're on our third episode of Reddit Reactions. We are just going to go straight into this. The first one we're talking about today is about HSAs. The first one, HSA, a secret retirement fund. Does anyone else use their HSA as a retirement vehicle? I have run into a handful of people that are doing some of the amazing things with their HSAs. I'm curious if this is a mainstream idea or what makes it so compelling.
Okay. Technically, it's not technically, right? It's not a retirement account. However,
What is an HSA?
So it's a health savings account. It's a great vehicle. It is tax deferred, which means that you put the money into the account today and you can deduct it from your current taxes. Now, it's better than just a standard tax deferred, because if you use it for medical expenses, then there's no tax. So even when you put the money in there, even when you take it out, you don't pay tax on it as long as you're using it for qualified medical expenses. Now, the IRS has a list of qualified medical expenses. You can go there and check it, and it probably changes over time. And then there are also limits. So there's a limit to who can put money into an HSA. And there are limits on how much money you can put into an HSA. So within all those limits, if you can get an HSA, I would say that most people, obviously not every person is it right for, but most people it would be. When you retire, your HSA can be used to pay your Medicare premiums. And then the other really cool thing about the HSA, you can invest it. So let me say that again. You can invest the money, right? So once the money gets to a certain amount, you can invest it in the market. You can buy different mutual funds, equities, and then that money will grow. And again, when you take it out, as long as you use it for qualified medical expenses, you do not pay tax on it. So the big thing that people say, oh, it's like a secret thing because people use it for their retirement. I think that's the big secret that people don't. It's not a secret. It's just people don't understand that it's a huge benefit because you don't pay tax on it when you put the money in. You don't pay tax on it when you take the money out, as long as you use it for qualified medical expenses. That's the key. But there's an annual limit on how much money you can put into it.
Aren't they portable with your job if you have the healthcare plan that allows for it?
That's correct. The HSA, well, it's a lot of times it comes as a benefit kind of thing with your employment. It also is portable. So if you open an HSA and then you switch jobs, that HSA stays with you and you can continue to put money in there as long as you continue to meet the requirements for being eligible to have an HSA. Now, I like it because I put the money in there and then I save the money as best I can. Even if you're putting the money in there and then using the money within that year, right? Because some people use it like that. At least you're not paying tax on it, right? So say I have a high deductible health plan, which is one of the requirements, and I put money in the HSA, but then I have a medical expense and I just don't have the cash flow right now. And so I take it out. You can do that. And it's still, you won't pay tax on that money because you used it for a qualified medical expense. So it can be good even if you're not able to save it for long term. It's still a good benefit to have.
And then, you can write it out through retirement and have it until, the end of your life.
Forever. Yeah. You can have it your entire life.
So that's HSAs. And remember, I can link in the description from the IRS, like the contribution limits, what's required for you to have an HSA. I can put something down there for sources if you're interested to learn more.
Well, we also have a podcast about
We do actually have a podcast on HSAs where we go more into it. We go more into FSAs as well, other employee benefits. So I can also link that in the description as well.
Okay, sounds perfect.
Next story we're going into. My wife is not on my mortgage. What happens to the house if I die? I bought a house in 2019 while I was still dating my wife. We were living together, and she let me forego paying rent and utilities for a year or two so I could save up for a down payment. I bought the house, we weren't married at the time, and we moved in together and later got married. Because of the way this went, I didn't think her name is on the mortgage or house or anything. If something happened to me, would she inherit the house or mortgage? Would she inherit the house but not the mortgage, or be forced to take out a new mortgage on it? I don't have a will. How would I go about getting her added to the mortgage or deed? I'm not sure where I need to have her name added, if I'm being honest.
Okay. So this one has a lot to talk about, actually. Okay, so first of all, good job that you're thinking about your spouse now as a unit, talking about your financials as a unit together, because these things do affect both of you. A lot of times we see one spouse more invested in it than the other, and we try to work with our families as units so that everybody understands, right? So that's good. That's the first thing. A second thing, you don't have a will, and I would highly recommend that you take care of that, get a will. Now, this is a legal issue, basically, right? We're talking about your house, and you're talking about your liabilities and your, the titling of this house that's your asset. So we're not lawyers, but from a financial planning standpoint, we would look at things like this and say, you definitely need to get this taken care of. You need a will that will transfer the house, first of all. If you want to add your wife to the asset, then you have to talk to a couple different, there's real estate lawyers. You can probably do this on your own if you're a do it yourself kind of thing, but you got to look at a lot of things. So usually you can't put them on the deed without also putting them on the debt, right? So because, right, you don't really own that asset. The bank owns a big part of that asset. You own a part of it, but the bank owns a part of it. So you're going to have to talk to your mortgage company and get them on board. You might have to do some type of refinancing. So there's a lot there as far as just getting the house or the title resolved, right? There are also probably some things that a real estate lawyer could talk to you about. If you didn't add her now, but putting it in the will in a way that it would then transfer to her automatically, or with some type of a special deed or special circumstance. But again, that's something that you would probably need to speak to a real estate lawyer about. I do recommend that you take care of this and get that as part of your overall financial picture. You do want to be looking at things like what happens to me or to her if one of us were to pass. That's a huge thing, right? We talk about life insurance, you talk about the changing of your assets, and that's a big part of financial planning and looking at your future and just having everything in order. Because if you don't have a will, then it's going to go to probate. That's going to make everything take longer. Meanwhile, your family's grieving, and then they're also trying to deal with these legal issues.
So, talk to me a little bit about this before, because I know as advisors, y'all have worked with clients on estate planning, depending on what the client is looking for. What can someone expect in that kind of conversation? I know it's more than just beneficiaries.
Well, when we talk about it, we're looking at it from the standpoint of your financials, right? So how are your financials going to transfer in the case of your death? Some people have trusts. Not everybody needs a trust. We're not trust attorneys, right? So maybe you need a trust depending on what your life circumstances are. A lot of people don't need trusts. But if you don't have a trust, then how are your assets going to transfer? Then you're going to have, say, a will. Do you have a will? What does your will say? Does it cover everything? Have you updated it? Because a lot of people will do a will and then they don't update it, and then they get married or they get divorced. I think we see that one quite a bit. I know personally somebody who got divorced and remarried somebody else, and then their spouse passed and never had changed their beneficiaries. So now that person is getting a retirement for life from an ex-spouse. So, I mean, good for her, I guess. But at the same time,
Wow.
yes. So a lot of times I think people forget of all the things that you need to do, right? So the conversation is, do you have a will? If you have a trust, then what are the conditions of the trust? And when's the last time you looked at it? And have you added your assets to the trust? Because that's another thing that people tend to not do. They make a trust and then they just think everything I own is in the trust. Well, only if you put it there, right? So you have to take the final steps. Usually, we do work with a trust attorney that we've, had clients come to. And I know that his policy is he gives the trust to the client and it has a letter that says, okay, now you have a trust. Now these are the steps you need to take to add assets to the trust. And one of those things is a piece of paper that says that you need to have your bank repaper, we call it repaper, but it's really like retitling how your bank account is listed. And then it won't necessarily say your names anymore. It'll say trustees for the, whatever trust. So that's kind of the conversation. And then do you have beneficiaries assigned on all of your accounts and are they up to date? So review these things. So periodically we will have those conversations. We talk about periodically reviewing and updating your financial plan. And that's all part of what we do.
It sounds to me that working with the financial advisor, frequently within the year, you'll already address some of these things. So something like this wouldn't surprise you down the road.
Correct. Yes. And again, we talk a lot about how it's our job to provide clarity to you around your finances. And, because we're not trust attorneys, we're not real estate attorneys, we're not tax professionals, but your finances touch all of those areas. So we ask the questions, we recommend, that you look into these things and, give you examples of maybe why you might want to take care of it, that kind of thing. And that's just part of, yes, what we do as financial planning.
If you'd like to speak with Peggy to talk more about your estate planning, looking at adding beneficiaries to your accounts, whatever it may be, you can schedule an appointment at Finances for Real Life. The schedule appointment button is in the top right of the homepage. You can find us there. You can also find us on this podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. And we're also on social media now. So you can find us on Instagram at Finances for Real Life and on LinkedIn.
I feel like we have to mention our sign.
Oh, yeah. Also, fun fact, guys, the sign is right there. It's brand new. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Finances for Real Life, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.